high above the Copacabana room here in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. That's where I'd like to be. But really, we're in Southern California in KHTS 1220 AM. You can listen to us on JobTalk1.com. Tommy Cairns and the coach and I, we just love your comments that we get on Facebook and tweets. Thank you for listening to the show. And Tommy, today we're going to keep Mark Hunter over because he wrote this book called High Profit Prospecting. It took me a year to get him. I'm not letting him go, and hopefully it won't take us a year to get him back. When are you coming back from Brazil? Can you come back on our show when you come back from Brazil and give us like a tour of Brazil?
Yeah, well, I'll be down there for all of about 30 hours, probably at the most. So
really?
I'll fly in one day, speak the next day, and literally fly out that night.
All right.
Because you know what? Yeah. I got other engagements I got to get back for.
I hear you, brother. I hear you. I will call you. When are you leaving for Brazil anyway?
Actually, that's not till October 17th.
Oh, okay.
I speak on the 18th, and I'll be back on the 19th because I have an engagement on the 19th.
Attaboy. And also joining us, Bob, where are you from? Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from the Dallas area of Texas, Plano, Texas, specifically.
No, Plano well. Used to have an office in Dallas. And you pronounce your last name how? Tiede?
Tiede.
Tiede. And
just
you
like touchdown.
So you wrote a book called Great Leaders Ask Questions. Well, anybody in sales, if you're good at what you do, you better ask great questions. So share with our audience here in Southern California, how do you go about asking great questions?
Wow. Well, I think, first of all, it takes a mindset change. And I share that I'm a charter member of TA. I don't know if you're familiar with TA. Many people are familiar with AA, not experientially, but they know about Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, TA is Tellers Anonymous. And at our meetings, I stand up and say, my name is Bob. I'm a teller. And they say, hello, Bob. And at this point, I'm a recovering teller.
Uh-huh.
And this journey, sometimes I say it this way, Coach, I was a benevolent dictator. And it wasn't out of evil intent. I thought, I love my staff. I thought the job of a leader was to set direction, to tell staff what to do. And in 2006, I came across Dr. Michael Marquardt's book, Leading with Questions. It was a page-turner, and it forever changed my paradigm from thinking that the best way to lead was to tell, to understanding that a superior way to lead is to lead with questions. And so, you asked how you lead with questions. I think number
Great
one
answer.
You have to have a mindset change. That
Absolutely.
It is a better way.
Absolutely. Great answer. Mark Hunter, my very special guest, the book, High Profit Prospecting. Give me your take on, I love Bob's answer. For me, it was perfect, but I'd love to hear your take on how do you ask great questions.
Yeah, you know what? The best question asked is a question that neither of you can answer. Think about this from a sales perspective for a second. If you ask a customer a question that they can't answer and you can't answer, now, it's not to make anybody look stupid, but what does that do? That gets a great discussion going. And what are questions designed to do? Uncover things, uncover information. So I love asking questions that we just can't answer.
Well, both of you are, in my book, geniuses. So Tommy Cairns, my partner here on the show, we call Job Talk 1. We're honored to have both of these guys. If you're in sales, look, if you're not in sales, turn off the radio. This show's not for you.
Well, but I was going to say there's actually, what intrigued me, and actually, Mark, this relates to something you said earlier, is that finding Bob, I found on an article that he wrote on LinkedIn. And so just as you were found for your opportunity in Brazil via LinkedIn, I think for our listeners, LinkedIn is the #1 social networking business site. And so there's a lot of great things that happen there. But I'm looking at like a bifurcated kind of a thing where leaders, you're either a high tell or a high sell. I mean, you look at participative leadership and coaching and other aspects, but what drew me to Bob was that I'm a high teller also, and so I'll tell you things, and then if that doesn't work, I go to selling, and selling you on the idea, trying to influence you. So we have a high tell and we have a high sell. But what do you? Bob, you've kind of harnessed that high tell person, and Mark, you got that sell. But where in the world do I come out on this as a leader? What am I supposed to do? How do I balance these things?
Hey, I'll go and jump in on that. I think you changed the paradigm completely to be high outcome. That's really what you want. You want the outcome. And whether or not that requires you to tell or whether or not that requires you to sell, it doesn't matter, because your objective as a leader is just the same thing as, like I said, the definition of a salesperson is to help others see and achieve what they didn't think were possible. Wow, that's what it's about.
Bob, your thought on what Tommy said.
Mark.
Oh, was that Bobby?
That was Bob.
Oh, Bobby sounds like Mark.
Well, that was Mark. That's okay.
Oh, that was Mark.
Yeah,
okay.
see?
I'm sorry.
You got to listen, man. If you're going to be in sales, Tommy Cairns, you got to listen, man.
He threw me off because he wasn't selling me. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry, Bob. Go ahead.
Well, a quote that I like comes from my friend Andrew Sobel. And Andrew wrote Power Questions. He's kind of a Fortune 500 in building client relationships for life. And he just says that telling creates resistance, but asking creates relationships. Just as Mark was saying with that question that neither could answer, having a question like that starts a conversation and creates a relationship.
We have that conversation. I didn't mean to interrupt, Bobby. Go ahead. Were you done?
No, go ahead.
No, I didn't want to interrupt, but we have probably our audience is 65% ladies, because this time of day they're in their car picking up their kids here in Southern California. Every school, there's hundreds and hundreds of cars listen to our show. What would you say to mothers and wives? Because even though your book is about leadership and Mark Hunter's book called High Profit Prospecting is about sales, your book is called Great Leaders. Don't you think, both of you guys, that mothers can have such a tremendous influence on their kids in talking to them about leadership? We don't hear this. If mothers don't meet you two guys on our show, I don't know where they would understand or hear about leadership. And I don't want to be picking on school curriculums like I do every week, but I want both of you to jump in. Talk to the mothers out there about leadership, because you've got to have a discussion. Young people don't understand this concept, and it's sad.
Well, Coach, if I could, I'd love to jump in. Whenever I meet a mother of children that are still in the home, I look at them and I say, you and I have the same mission. And they kind of look at me like, well, how could that be? And then I say, well, let me share my mission statement with you. My mission is to develop the next generation of leaders. What's your mission? And I always see this smile come over their face, and they say, exactly, that's also my mission. Because that is the goal of every mother, is to develop her children into being outstanding leaders for their generation.
Well, I love that, Mark. You got to sell, but mothers who are listening to our show, just what Bob just said a minute ago, you can't talk to people. You can't tell people anything. I've got young people producing our show, and you've got to create a culture in which they want to. At least they're smiling right now, all these young dudes. Don't you, through the sales mechanism, don't you have to create a culture? I love the pages 38 through 42 in your book. Resonated with me because you say, who are you selling it to? So if you're 14 or 17 years old, or like Justin in his 20s, we're a bunch of old dogs. We've got to present ourselves in a different way. Yes or no, Mark Hunter?
Oh, without a doubt. But you know what? It all starts with having a foundation of integrity. If you don't have integrity as an individual, I don't care what you say, it's not going to resonate. And that's for the parent at home, that's for the person in the workplace. And what I see in the millennials, millennials today are really calling out baby boomers, and they really should. Because baby boomers are saying, look, I want to see integrity, I want to see authenticity, I want to see transparency. And if I can't see those things, I'm not hanging around. Because what are they feeling? That they've been sold this false lifehood, so to speak. And if we as leaders are willing to demonstrate everything we do with a level of integrity, do it with authenticity and transparency, I think will change the impact that we have on those we have the privilege to lead. And leadership is not a title. Leadership is a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle.
I agree with you on both your comments are spot on. Want to mention one aspect that it becomes out of the book, Great Leaders Ask Questions, Bob, where one of the things that is coming up with questions that people will have, and I run across a lot of leaders that will ask the questions of their subordinates to ask, what should we do? And they'll listen, and then they'll go out and do exactly what they had in mind without really what their person told them about. So what do you do about that aspect, where you can ask the great questions, and some leaders may think that that's what it just, if all I need to do is just ask the questions, but do I need to take action?
Is that one for me, Tommy?
Yeah, and then I'll have Mark on it too, because from the aspect of sales and selling, there's a lot of different things that you're selling pieces as well, and how do we listen really to others and really act on what people are saying?
My experience, Tommy, it may be different than you, or I may have not picked up the nuance that you are getting after, but my experience is that when I ask my staff questions, for example, they come to me with a problem, and instead of saying, hey, let me tell you what to do, or here's the solution, I say, tell me more. And what do you think you ought to do? What do you think might be the best solution here? And I engage them, and when they come up with the solution and it's theirs, there's just a much greater percentage that they're leaving owning the solution because it's their solution, and that they're going to execute on that. Whereas in the past, when I gave them the solution that was my solution, there was far less, looking back, I realized there was far less success in them actually executing on my solution than when they come up with one. So what I do today is to turn it back to them, so that they come up with a solution to their problems, they own it, and that requires them. I mean, all of us, if we're listening to a teller, can pretend like we're listening while our mind's 1,000 miles away. But when the leader is engaging us with questions, she's got our full attention, because we can't go 1,000 miles away and yet answer their question.
Well, I'm telling you, I have not met you before, but I'm going to have you back too. You're a special guest. Pronounce your last name again, Bob.
Coach, did you coach football?
Baseball.
Baseball. Okay.
I did coach football in high school and baseball in college. Football in high school, baseball in college. And I'm old, you guys. I'm old enough to be both your fathers, and I can't remember in 5-minute increments. So don't beat me up like my wife does.
No, I'm just helping you. I'm helping you. In football, we sometimes refer to a touchdown as a TD.
There you go. Bob TD, his book is, and I got to have you back with that little phony Dallas accent. Bob TD, the book is called Great Leaders Ask Questions. But I love what you said, because that plays right into Mark Hunter's book, High Profit Prospecting, because in sales, Mark Hunter, don't you have to do exactly what Bob TD said, and that is create the culture in which the customer says, I want to do business with you.
That is so spot on, because you're letting the customer drive the discussion. Whatever the customer shares with you, you ask them a follow-up question on it. You engage them more. What does that do? It just keeps the conversation going. And it's amazing when the customer's talking with you, they think you're a hero, because all you're doing is listening to them. Listen. You don't have to drive the discussion. The best salespeople really talk the least. And you know what? That's the same way with a lot of leaders. Think about that from a leadership standpoint, because you're empowering your people to achieve an outcome.
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys.
That's phenomenal, because it's counterintuitive, Mark, to what most people think is that when's that salesperson going to stop talking?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. It's funny, but there's a definition I love to use. Sales is leadership, and leadership is sales. A great leader is a great salesperson. A great salesperson is a great leader. Think about that for a moment. But it's always the case. It's always the case.
You got to do some gigs,
traits
Mark
are
Hunter, in Dallas and meet Bob Tiede.
Hey, I do want to connect with him. You bet.
Yeah, no, you both. I'm blessed to have you
Me
both
too.
in my life now. I'll bug the crap out of both of you guys. I mean, you guys are good at what you do. My very special guest, Mark Hunter, the author of High Profit Prospecting. Don't kid yourself. If you're in sales, this is a book you want to look at, because prospecting, I said it when I opened the show, I don't think I'm a great salesman. I'm a great prospector. That's made me a great life in the sales business. And the other book by Bob Tiede, Great Leaders Ask Questions, you cannot be great in sales if you don't have the art and the science and understanding that quit telling, just what Bob said, quit telling and learn how to ask questions. We're going to take a quick break here on the show called Job Talk 1. We're going to come back with these two gentlemen and have them back many times. We're going national on over 200 radio stations. I'd love to have you, both of you, as part of our cast. People love our show, and what they love about it is that we have guests like you guys on, and it just takes one idea, one question, one thought, and it can change your life. And that's why we do the show, because if you're in a job that you hate right now, Tommy Cairns, this is the show to listen to. Next week, we're going to be bringing on guys that are in the what I would call the entrepreneurial business, franchises and things like that. So if you hate your boss, if you're disgusted with your life and your job, and it's time for you to move on, next week, and we're not charging anybody to listen to the show, are we? We were thinking about it. We were thinking about it. You know, that's another thing, idea, Bob.
Actually.
Mark Hunter has the right idea on his book. His book in Amazon is $10,000 a copy. It's called High Profit Prospecting. You need to raise the price of your book, because these books are pretty special. People need to pay for it. You can learn more in these two books than you can going to 4 years of Harvard. Trust me.
It took me 45 minutes to read Bob's book.
Yeah, and you're better off for it.
I'm better off already.
Be right back. The show is called Job Talk 1, and when we come back, I'm going to bring up a subject that it may be a little too sensitive for most of you to listen to, but come on back. If you've got the guts, you're going to want to hear what I have to say. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Tommy Cairns and the coach here on Job Talk 1. Two terrific guests. We'll have them back. And both books, Great Leaders Ask Questions by Bob Touchdown. What's his last name? Tiede. I was just teasing you. I knew his last name. And then Mark Hunter, High Profit Prospecting. So here's what I was going to say, my dear audience, that I really feel our educational system has failed our country and is failing your kids. If you listen to these two guys, think about it. If these two gentlemen were teachers at your school, really, don't you think that your kids would be so far ahead of everybody else? Because they talked about all the things that in my generation were talked about. You and I are the same age.
Absolutely.
And,
sure.
you know, Mark Hunter and both Bob Tiede talked about being open, talked about character, talked
Values.
about, yeah. And these things are not taught today. And I blame you parents, because when I was a kid growing up, there were 1,000 people at the PTA meeting. Have you been to a PTA meeting lately? I have. It's embarrassing. The other night, back to school night, at one, I won't give it away, at one of my grandkids' back to school, there's 40 some odd kids in the class, which is way too many. How many parents showed up? 7.
Wow.
7 parents. So you want to know what's wrong with America, ladies and gentlemen? It's you. You don't seem to care like we seem to care, and that's why I put these guys on. That's why I put a Mark Hunter on and a Bob Tiede, because these guys are getting paid a lot of money to coach companies up. They're getting paid a lot of money to talk about what they talk about, and these are the things that need to be talked about in school. So guys, jump in. Bob, you jump in first. Am I right or wrong on this?
Oh, you're right. You may have heard this statistic. I don't have it right at my fingertips to give you just the exact number, but the average preschooler asks somewhere around 200 plus questions a day. The average college graduate asks about 20. And the problem is that we put that child into kindergarten, first grade, and the teacher says, Johnny, quit asking questions. It's my job. I'm the teacher. I'll ask the questions. It's your job to give the answers. And that over time, by the time they've graduated from the university, they've quit asking questions, or very many. And a great educational system, though, will actually, and again, I don't have at my fingertips a future program I can have at my fingertips, but there are educational movements that are now focusing on teaching students, kids in grade school, on how to ask better questions. And they're discovering amazing things that are happening when you engage the students in asking questions about the subject versus read the book and listen to my lecture.
Amen. Amen. Your take on what I said, Mark Hunter. I think the educational system, the curriculum is failing our kids, and I think if kids were exposed to gentlemen like you, life would be a lot better in this country. Yes or no?
Oh, yes. I think that's spot on, because let's go back to what he just said, though, in terms about, there's so much information available on the internet today. If I'm going to be valuable as an individual, I have to ask questions. Because if I don't ask questions, what value am I bringing? Because all that information's out there on the internet. I have to be one. And this doesn't, it's if you're a salesperson, if you're a business person, it doesn't matter what the job is. We have to become more inquisitive as a society and as people.
I agree with everything both of you have said, and actually one of the things that I like about Bob's book as well is that we tend to think questions are complex, and one of the questions that little children ask perpetually is why. And to whatever it is, and you actually, as a parent, you would get tired hearing why. But that's a question that we lose as we grow older. We don't ask why enough, and that's in business as well. And that's just a very simple thing to remember. But unfortunately, I think our education system does kill creativity. I teach graduate students, and you mentioned that part, Bob. It is, where 20 questions are asked, and there'll be many times that I will say, do you have any questions? And you really have to pause and wait, but questions are not forthcoming, and they tend to want to think more about things, which I appreciate, but there should be more spontaneity and just being able to ask questions.
Amen to all three of you. Our show is called Job Talk 1. We will have these guys back, and I will continue to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, because I need just what Tommy said. You need to be challenged. You need to think about, the word paradigm came up many times today. Paradigm means shift. So having a shift in your thinking. If you're in sales and you're struggling right now, this book, High Profit Prospecting, I'm telling you what, it's a great read, because prospecting is the foundation to having, I think, a great life in selling. If you can learn how to prospect, I'm not even that great of a salesman, but I was a darn good prospector. And Bob Tiede's book, Great Leaders Ask Questions, he just said it all on his comment to my thought process, that learning how to ask questions gets other people talking, and when other people start talking, you know what they're thinking. When other people start sharing with you what's on their mind, then you're going to find out how you can help them in their life, how you can help them be more valuable, how you can be more valuable. You can't do anything until you find out what the other guy's thinking about. So God bless you both, Mark Hunter in Omaha, Nebraska, and Bob Tiede in Dallas, Texas. You guys will be back many times on the show we call Job Talk 1 with Tommy Cairns and the coach. See you down the road.